Even if Jesus was crucified, that doesn't prove he is God or that the Trinity is true. Correct. The crucifixion alone doesn't prove the Trinity, but it is the foundation of Christian theology. Because, okay, so before I continue, this is point number 5 made by this person here, the Doraemon Man, and I have made the video for point number 1, 2, 3, and 4, including with my comment to each of these points. So I do the in a separate videos, and this is addressing point number 5, and later I'll go to my comment addressing this one. Right, so it is the foundation of Christian theology based on this 1, 2 verses from the Bible. The crucifixion and resurrection are inseparable from the Christian claim that Jesus died for sin, rose again, and is Lord. The Quran denies all of this in one vague verse, 5:157, and replace it with a theory of divine trickery. That's not justice, that's not truth. Final word, you said God is indeed truthful. But if God is truthful, He wouldn't create the single greatest illusion in human history, only to correct it 600 years later, in a book that tells people to follow scriptures it supposedly represses. Okay, so some of this point is actually I have addressed it in the previous point before point number 5. So it may not be repeated in this video. That's not truth, that's theological whiplash. Okay, so I'll go to for point number 5 here, which is my comment. Alright, on point 5 in your comment, you stated, even if Jesus was crucified, that doesn't prove he's God or the Trinity is true. Okay, the first quote is mine, and then this is his response, right? And I'm quoting the whole thing. Correct, this is what he said as a response to my statement. The crucifixion alone doesn't prove the Trinity. So he actually acknowledged that on its own, the crucifixion of Jesus doesn't prove Trinity. And he agrees with me, basically, that, okay, good, then you cannot blame it on Allah for such thing. You cannot pinpoint to people believing Jesus was killed as being responsible for belief in Christianity. Otherwise, you'd also be asking, why did God let Jesus be born from a miraculous birth? Why did God allow Jesus to perform miracles, etc., right? Because those are points that build up to the Christian narrative, because Christians use all those points to support the claim, right? Of course, all of these can be answered and addressed, but I'm just pointing out all of this is not in itself supporting the core belief of Christianity, right? Because Jesus is not the only one who performed miracles. Jesus is not the only one who had miraculous birth, and Jesus is not the only one that was killed. Okay, you said, but it is the foundation of Christian theology because, okay, so this is the verses. The crucifixion and resurrection are inseparable from the Christian claim that Jesus died for sin, rose again, and is Lord. So, the responsible thing for the belief is the author of Mark, John, Roman, correct? Because he mentioned those verses as part of the foundation of Christian theology. So, in that case, then you have to blame them on Christianity, not God for allowing Jesus to be saved and not killed, etc., right? Let's imagine without these writings, would people still worship Jesus just because Allah let them think that Jesus was crucified and died on the cross? Right? And it is quite clear from Muslim perspective or from Islamic perspective, right? Any real follower of Jesus that actually practiced the teaching of Jesus back then, in the time of Jesus, right? He's a Muslim. He comply, he submit to God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and follow the commandments. When they say Jesus died, and they really think that Jesus died, there's no issue with them to enter paradise because they still believe in one God. They don't believe Jesus is God, because just because they see Jesus died, nothing changes about God. God is one, etc. Right? And then they still practice the teachings of Jesus. Hence, they are Muslim, practicing Muslim, and should go to paradise. Right? No issue there. So the death of Jesus, even when people believe that is the case, the Muslim back then, even if they believe that is the case, and of course Allah did not reveal anything beyond what they see or they heard, right? There has no problem because their belief is not affected, their practice is not affected. It's just that they thought Jesus had died when Jesus actually risen to heaven, right? Okay. You stated final words. You said God is indeed truthful, but if God is truthful, He wouldn't create the single greatest illusion in human history, only to correct it 600 years later in a book that tells people to follow scriptures it supposedly replaces. No, that's not truth, that's theological whiplash. This is me quoting his full comment, and then I said, as I indicated earlier, the death of Jesus in itself is not going to lead people to have Christian beliefs. And you yourself agree with this, quoting your comment. And here is exact word by word his comment. Correct, the crucifixion alone doesn't prove Trinity. So I sincerely hope that Christians will stop blaming God for their belief in Christianity. So that's my comment there. And then he replied back, I will make video for that after this one. So until next time, see you then.